Hey everybody, welcome back to We Are Podcast. This is I Hate Being Sober, Season 1, Episode 15, Living with Dissociative Identity Disorder with Kasie Lynn. If this is your first time checking out the podcast network, please head over to your favorite podcast app, Spotify, Stitcher, Podbean, or iTunes, and give We Are Podcast Network a like. And if you get a chance, head over to our social media. All links can be found in the description. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at /We Are Podcast. And with that said, on to the podcast.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to
I Hate Being Sober!
And now our host, Doug!
Hey everybody, welcome to I Hate Being Sober, personal stories from epic people. Today I am talking to Kasie Lynn. We are going to be talking about DID, Dissociative Identity Disorder, also previously known as multiple personality disorder, which is an interesting thing. And I think a lot of the stigma comes from that original title that it had. We're going to get into it. We're going to kind of talk about how you came upon being diagnosed with this, if that's all right. So you do have DID, is that correct?
So I was first identified, if you will, by my first therapist in 2017. Immediately within the first session, when we're going over like, hey, this is what we were going over with my previous therapist. This is, the top points that, we're looking into dissociative disorders. It looks like I might have something along those lines and DID specifically. And she said, no, too rare. There's no way you'd have it. You would come in here looking different every day, acting differently with different voices and all these different things. And I said, okay, you're the doctor, right? And so then I went forth with medications and tons of different and medications, trying this one and changing that all on 15-minute visits every 30 to 90 days, which isn't, in my opinion, enough to even consider discounting DID.
Absolutely, because they're not actually viewing you and seeing the disassociating moments and the mood changes, the alters. So how can you diagnose it? And you kind of knew something was going on. And we'll get into what all that means here. But so they were saying, no, it's not DID. Were they saying it was borderline personality or?
Borderline. Well, it's a litany of diagnoses that they went through. And borderline personality disorder, generalized anxiety, complex PTSD. So right before I went to treatment after the completion of suicide, the doctor that I hadn't, well, maybe we talked to him. He diagnosed schizophrenia. So that was also on my records. So I'm scrolling through your health records in your app, right, with your insurance. You're just, oh, wow, that's a lot of diagnosis.
And I was going to say, a lot of the times with this disorder, they do look at it as, in a way, it's similar to borderline personality disorder with the mood swings and stuff like that. But it's different because it's defined by the mood swings in a completely different way. Right. Because they're alternate states of mind at that time. But also, it does go hand in hand with schizophrenia. And there are a lot of people who don't even believe DID exists. There's a lot of psychiatrists who don't believe it. It's a real condition.
I believe that it's not that they believe that it's a real condition. It's that they believe there's someone else in the system had read that we felt attacky, right? When we were reading it, just because of where we're at in our healing journey. And so we weren't ready to read that. But yeah, it's not specific that they don't believe it exists. They believe that it's a different specific type of mind fragmentation. But regardless, the psychiatric community is divided on the topic.
Right. Whenever you get down to what really defines it, the DID, and hopefully you can go into more, but how I understand it is you have alters, which are states of mind or emotional states that can take over at any time. Is that right? Or do they kind of based upon getting triggered, or how does it work?
That's going to depend on each system. Every system is different because the systems are set up essentially through childhood as we develop. And so each part has kind of their own role and function in the system. There can be parts that handle going to work. There can be parts that handle, doing the dishes or, doing the housework, or, parts that specifically hold the trauma, various different altered, fragmented states of the personality. So with that, each system is different because everyone's experiences throughout their life are different. And it's not a cookie cutter thing, and why it's really difficult post awareness, post diagnosis, essentially, because no one is going over and saying, this is how your system should look. Here's all your alter profiles. So you're just kind of lost in the wind with all of your chaos, it feels like.
The first question I want to ask is, what did you think when you were first diagnosed with it? Was your thought like, that makes perfect sense, that's what I'm experiencing? Were you afraid at all? How did you feel?
Well, so in 2017 is when I was first identified as DID. Then had to switch psychologists within the same network, same provider, what have you. But the difference was it went from the children's ward to the adult section, because that transition, the no notes were read or anything from the provider. They were within the same network, but that's okay. The way the facility ran is it was, state funded or grant funded. So it pretty much was the only place that took, state insurance. And so with that being said, they were overrun with just so many people trying to help so many people. And so they only had time to see each person for 15 minutes every 30 to 90 days. And then the therapy, I just now remember we did do therapy along with that as well. Oh yeah, we did DBT and EMDR therapy with a separate therapist that wasn't, prescribing the medication. And he wasn't diagnosed. He was just, going with the DBT skills and EMDR.
You were going through the therapy, and, how did you feel about all of it once the diagnosis, came into play? Did it make sense? Did it click?
That's right. The first, so in 2017, before I moved to the new therapist, yes, it kind of made sense, but it was around the time that Split had come out. So I was just like, that's okay, I'm good.
Yeah, it's a little scary. I mean,
willfully, yeah, just like, okay, she said no, we're good.
Yeah.
And thinking that I could change that, right? That would be enough. Nope. And I was like, okay, so just really think about the continued lost time, the continued instability, the preceding hospital visits, and suicide attempts, and just it's just normal stuff.
Well, that is the question, though. How does it become normal every day to deal with it? What is a normal thing for DID? Do you have amnesia? Is that something that you have a lot of? Because I know that's one of the biggest signs of it. Is that correct?
Right. Yes. I have. I didn't realize I had a ton of amnesia, or any really. I was like, there are times where I have documented by police that I don't have memory for. Those I couldn't discount, right? And clearly, I gave a different name. I called her Hulk Kasie. You're not gonna like me when I'm angry, right? That was come to find out my protector, and not known as Delilah, not Hulk Kasie. She didn't really like that, I guess. But I just thought it was how people get really angry and they're like, I blacked out. The amnesia. There were a lot of times where I've woken up, came to in places that I had no idea how I got there. A lot, but it became to where how I satiated that, and then also kind of two bird one stoned it with combating my fears. I just became agoraphobic. So I didn't leave my house really unless it was to go to work. And then it was just my son and I drop him off at school. I'd go to work. I'd pick him up from school, take him back to my office. We'd go home. We're good. Child isn't going to really remember all the things. He just knows that if mom's telling me that I need to get off the video games in 10 minutes, if I ask her what's for dinner, she may or may not forget, and I'll get extra game time.
Yeah.
My son did very well in school, in the gifted program. He loves math. But regardless, amnesia. Post-diagnosis and awareness is when I started to become really aware of it. And that is when I started to be open to the fact that maybe the things that people are coming to me and sharing with me, interactions they had with me, they didn't have memory for, behaviors they saw in me. Previously, I would take offense and get very upset because I've been gaslit before. Okay. We got lots of drama. We're good. We've seen that. No, that doesn't even sound like something I would say, do, or anything. And, post-diagnosis, it turns out that my amnesia and my lost time is other people's gaslighting, what they received from me, because I presented narcissistically. That's kind of what I call it the best ways, because, undiagnosed, I passionately thought what I knew in my heart of hearts wasn't true.
From my understanding, my girlfriend has a friend who also has DID, and we were discussing a little bit. And one of their things is they got into a fight with their partner over conversations they'd had that they did not remember. And that became a big issue and eventually led to a split. And that's why I was wondering if you've had the similar conversations with people, and you've already said you have, where you don't recall them at all.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I've been post, when I was getting ready to go into treatment and everything, I had contacted, because I was like, this is really it. My partner had moved in with me, and it was kind of the first time in a long time, in about 10 years, that an adult had lived with me, really. That wasn't like a roommate, that was kind of, doing their own thing, shift the night, not watching me all the time, not seeing changes or any of that. That me telling them I didn't have a conversation with them, it was easier. I don't want to fight, whatever, that doesn't matter. And drop it. But yeah, I contacted, my exes, and I was just like, turns out that, I might be, dissociated. And I believe I gaslit you. I'm pretty sure I traumatized you. I don't know what else to say except I'm sorry. You were right. I felt terrible. And so, reaching out and, having those conversations, they pretty much all said, yeah, I know. I was trying to tell you that.
Yeah. Well, but it's not your fault, because how would you have known? You had something that you didn't know about, and it wasn't diagnosed at the time. And how could you have known? Hopefully they forgave you and everything's cool. It sounds like probably most likely that's the outcome. So
they were able to get past, I believe, like from what they tell me. I don't know if that's fully being honest, but regardless.
Just kind of going into it, your alters. What form do your alters take? Are they simply an emotional state, or do they take over completely and have their own identity within your body? I guess it's everyone's body, technically, right? Isn't that the way you would say it? You call it the system.
Body.
And you call it
the
a
body.
system?
That's what all of the different parts and or alters or fragmented parts of yourself that make up your total identity. It's your system. So they all work together like a system to be functional, be happy, be productive, any of the things that you'd want to attain as an individual, as a singleton or plural alike. And so again, each system is different. For us, leaving treatment, they did not give you a pamphlet. They weren't like, here's a brochure, these are all of your alters, here's their profiles, their likes and dislikes. I'm like, no, you need to continue. And what they did do is they taught me how to communicate with my parts, to listen. And that's where you learn about them. And so my parts, the emotional parts and the apparently normal parts, that's kind of the differing categories with regards to emotional parts are going to be parts that hold emotional and truly strong pull with regards to emotionally influencing the full system or the body as a whole. And so emotional influence, is basically where a part that is not fronting or, pre-diagnosis, just it was for me out of nowhere. I had no idea. These overwhelming feelings of despair, of just terror, of absolute sheer various different things. Emotional parts for our system don't hold really a specific role outside of we look at it as an ear marker for what we need to process trauma-wise. A lot of times they can be trauma holders. And so we look at that as, where we need to look at for, processing that trauma. And then for us, having a lot of parts seems daunting to us because you have to care for and be considerate and be cooperative of each part. They all have their own likes, dislikes, opinions, wants, desires, goals, aspirations, mood changes, styles. Like it's overwhelming. So many different, and that's okay because we want to accept them. It is a hidden disorder. Pre-awareness. And as it's forming. Prior to the host or the main person. Really knowing is that it's meant to not be obvious. It's meant to hide because it's dangerous being a multiple. It's put me in circumstances that has led to re-traumatizing farthering, the damage and kind of the amnesic barriers that I had in my system. But, the other category would be the apparently normal parts. The apparently normal parts are those that are just that, kind of apparently normal. We call them APNs. Those are going to be parts that essentially have roles, their personality, hold to themselves.
Do you call them alters or personalities, or which do you call them?
I call them parts because calling them alters and personalities feels real. So there's stages for accepting you have disassociation or dissociative parts. You mentioned in the day-to-day, I'm actually creating a line of accommodations for parts specifically to kind of help and bridge this gap with life and everything.
Do you identify as non-binary then because of the system? Because I saw you use the pronouns they, them.
Right. Yeah. So we do they, them just for broadly applicable. Like we don't really get offended or anything like that. We only have one male alter in the system, and that's Case. And so he doesn't mind. He doesn't front all too much.
This is a good time to kind of bring up too. It'll be linked in the description. If you go to Kasie's TikTok, you can actually watch the series of videos on the DID, and you actually do put up the parts and that. And so when you switch, you actually have point out in the video at that part what part you are out of the system.
So the parts, there's 7. So we are septual. I just found that term.
There's 7 distinct parts. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And you have a name for each one?
Yeah, well, they have names for, yes, each one has a name. They are Delilah, and then right here, it's April. Down here is Case, Ginger. Then we have Pebbles and Penny, and Data is in the middle.
When you switch in between the parts, what form does that take? Are you still Kasie, or do you become specifically Data or Ginger or Case?
Right. Yes, so we co-front a lot. We're co-conscious a lot of the times, which means there's more than one of us fronting at a time. Yeah, a few of the parts have more amnesic barriers up. So when they front, like Delilah, when she fronts, she switches. It kind of is like you're driving in a car, right? And you're in the back seat. You know, at times we can watch, like at times we are able to see what's going on. And that's something we're working on right now, is getting that executive function back and pulling that into like, okay, let's, until we've fine-tuned how to handle Chigan's threats. And so it's like you're just in the backseat watching someone drive, and you can't do anything because your backseat driver, like, they're not listening, they're not doing anything, and you're just watching them destroy your life. Or you wake up, discharged to a hospital bed or in the jail psych ward, and just come find out later on what all the destruction and damage was.
So are the other parts more destructive? I know that you said earlier, Delilah, you said Hulk Kasie, initially you said you didn't like that name. That's a personality that comes out to protect, or is that a destructive part?
So she is a protector, absolutely. Now she's a conditioned response. Her fronting is generally a triggered response. There's a couple of parts that have the triggered responses that kind of just automatically show up when they deem that it's not safe. And then a lot of times I've woken up in the playground, like just under the slide, just like, hey, it's whatever. No, we're good.
And what part would that be? That was Delilah just taking over and saying, okay, I'm going to put us in a safe place?
Essentially, yeah. For instance, of that, one particular time that comes to mind, I was at a chill, like a kickback with the person I was seeing at the time, a couple of his friends. Like they were like nice and everything. Like I had met the people who owned the home like a couple times, but there was a person that was new there, and he was like about 6'2" or whatever, kind of tall. I'm 5'7", and so I don't really remember the leading up. We were talking, and then all of a sudden I came to the playground. What was informed to me that happened was he came to touch my shoulder to talk to me, and I just, nope. And then I turned around, yelled at him, shouted at him very loud, I guess, and tried to fight him. When he declined fighting, I ran.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. The switch, is it subtle sometimes, most of the time? Because you said before that you have to protect yourself. And to let others know that you have DID, it can be dangerous because, like you said, it's stigmatized, and people don't understand it. I'm guessing you're not dangerous, other than, Delilah coming out and saying, I'm going to fight you because this is not a safe scenario. But otherwise, even then, that's just protection. You had every right to do so. Somebody touched you and wanted.
Exactly. Everyone has the propensity for violence and to become dangerous, when they're provoked and pushed up. So that it's a fun question. So Delilah doesn't feel pain physically at all. So she has an ability to withstand a lot. And so even when there are multiple people attacking us, there was an interaction with law enforcement where we were in bed. There was called for trespassing or what have you, but first episode, it's a long story. But regardless, there was a few gentlemen that weren't able to make me leave or, in custody, if you will. They had just told me, and my partner who I was living with, they had just told me to go lay down and, it's okay, we'll handle it. Okay. And then next time, I know it's surrounded by cops and getting tased, and she rips out and they tase her again. And it's just a lot. I mean, I'm very lucky that I am, alive and here, and absolutely, it's.
Are you okay?
Yep, we're switching.
You need to take a minute?
No, we're fine. Where's my drink?
Take a minute. You're fine. We're talking about triggering events right now.
It's not triggering for me so much as I've been told several times that it makes people uncomfortable, and so we as a system are trying to work on. It's a paradox. It's a paradox. We are trying to work on a cohesive unity, right, within the system, and working together to be successful. We're getting the hang of it. We're not stable, so we're very switchy. We're switching a lot, rapidly switching, just switchy all day, and that makes it very difficult to pay attention to things, to keep track of the time of day, to take care of ourselves as far as just nutrition, as far as exercise, doing anything, because we can lose time, and each part has their own desires, wants, and needs, right? So stop starting tasks is what they call it. I believe ADHD might have a similar thing, but stop starting. Essentially, one part will start a task, another part will hijack, take over, and then they're just going to start their own task while the other task is half finished. And so that comes into play system accountability. Like, no, guys, we know what's wrong, so we're going to know how to fix it. It's not we know what's wrong, let's keep doing it. We just now know why. That's not what it is. And so that's something we're working on is that system accountability. And it's a lot, because just 4 months ago, stopped ignoring the screaming, stopped ignoring all of the things, stopped trying my best to ignore it, and to no avail. Because that's the thing is, when they ask you in mental health, hey, do you hear voices? Nope.
No,
sure don't.
No. Because if you say yes, they will put you in the.
Well, that's your fear.
Yeah.
They won't. Actually, they don't.
What they worry about mostly is the
self-harm. If you're going to harm yourself or
harm others, that's the voice they're worried about. But if you hear voices, which people who have mental health, I have psychosis. And so it's one of those things where I would hear intrusive voices. And I dealt a lot with suicidal voices or naysaying voices, or voices in the back of my head that would say, you're worthless, no one loves you, you're not worth anything. For me, the medication helped me deal with those voices. They still come and go here and there, but they dampened them. That's something we were going to talk about. You've chosen not to be medicated. It was your choice. Yes. What was that choice based upon?
That there is no medication for DID. It's not something that you can medicate. Now, if you have like comorbid anxiety and what have you, they can give you medication for that. But then you run into the situation where not all of my parts are anxious. So, then we're, medicating unnecessarily. The amount of medication that we were on, it was outstanding. The amount of side effects that it caused, far worse than what it didn't solve. I initially went off medication kind of, intentionally, but without really going over anything with my doctor, because she always said, we can try it. I still saw her. Like, I wasn't just like, nope, no care. I was like, okay, well, I'm going to do this. And then I'm going to, let her know, okay, well, yes, I've gotten this far, and worst case, I would start medication again. It resulted in not good, resulted in a suicide that was successful, and then I was resuscitated. And that kind of started this last year. That being said, medication when I was in treatment was very prevalent, and a lot of the other patients, and that's fine. Medication absolutely really helps, and people truly need it. I was raised by, my mom's a hippie technically, she's a musician. And so I, have a lot of those same, I don't really like medications. I've never liked medications. I've always just kind of tried to let my body heal on its own. The body's miraculous. It can heal a lot on its own. You just gotta do the right things, eat nutritionally. I started exercising, and I noticed more clarity and more ability to focus, ability to manage a lot of the emotional turbulence that I was experiencing. When I went into treatment, they wanted to initially, put me back on medication. And I said, well, hey, look, I'm open to going back on medication. Absolutely. Now, though, is the first time we've ever really known exactly, okay, this is what it is. I would like to under supervision, because, they watch you the whole time. They survey you 24/7. They have to. I'd like to not do medication. And he's okay, but, the second, that this proves to be, possibly detrimental to your health, we're going to evaluate it. Absolutely. That's my promise to you. I will absolutely go through and get back on them if that's what is medically best for me. But they looked, and, as soon as I was able to start, because I couldn't get into the gym, I didn't have a gym there, and so I wasn't able to keep my routine. But what I did is I just started walking. I went back to the basics, right? Just walking. And that actually granted me an ability to utilize the skill that I went there to learn: listening, inner communication, talking to myself, being able to have that cohesiveness, cooperation within my parts. And so walking, I just would walk, and the first sessions were very weird, but as we were able to, listen, I'm open. But anyways, that's not that question. The question at hand is medication.
No, that's good, because I wanted to talk about that. You kind of segued into something. The parts and how they communicate. How does that work? You said usually you have duology.
That's one of the biggest, stickiest, the hardest things to get is the communication.
Mm-hmm.
So notebooks, you'll write in journals and stuff. And that's one of the things also that kind of pre-diagnosis that I was like, well, yeah, that kind of makes sense, because I got a lot of notebooks of things I don't remember writing in different handwriting that I wrote. So it's different, but that's one of the things we were able to do post-diagnosis is, and that's what a lot of other systems do as well, is they'll go through and they'll write. You'll leave a notebook out on the counter with a pen and you just leave it there, or you might need to leave it open specifically, so they'll write on it. And there's a lot of dynamics, and with it, some parts don't want to communicate with you. You have to accept that. Okay, well, yeah, I'm here for you. We are still open. I know that I have absolutely demified you because of the destruction was very disruptive in what I thought was about to be very successful. We would become successful professionally, and an event would happen, or something. And it's because of, and I now know because of the different parts in the roles, it's parts won't front if they don't want to, or don't feel comfortable. And so is what it is. But the communication, we learned with our, therapists in treatment, how to try to communicate without paper. And that started with, me accepting that I have an inner world, and accepting all of that, accepting that it's okay, because it's unbelievable. It feels unbelievable. Like you're going through it literally, and you're like, this is not happening. How is this happening? I used to have a pain, like one of my parts would communicate through pain. Anytime I would start to talk about a specific trauma, or prior to diagnosis, there was anytime I would start to talk about a particular age, a point in time in my life, anytime I would try to remember that, like it right here, like at the top of my spine, like base of my neck, I would get this. The only way I could ever describe it was like God's hand coming down and just like ripping my spine, like an unholy amount of pain, and I couldn't ever stop it. Like I was just like, okay, and I would just be like, it would hurt, and so I wouldn't know what it was from, because I don't have any back problems, I don't have these issues, so it's startling, and I just learned not to talk about that age. And so in therapy, when we are talking about things and going over things, and the pain would start, it would start to come, like almost like a warning. Stop talking about that. Stop talking about that. And it would just like tingle and like hurt, and it would come. And one day in a session, I was like, I couldn't handle it. I just like yelled, stop. Like it did. The pain just stopped.
And that was an opening to the communication between the different parts?
No, that was me just shouting stop out of just sheer like not knowing what to do, because I couldn't handle it. And the part stopping, or hearing my request. And that is terror. That was terrifying. I just like sat there, and my therapist, the doctor therapist, she's just like, well, that was pretty cool.
She said that was pretty cool. Hey everyone, it's just Duck jumping in here real quick to say thank you so much for checking out the podcast today. If you're enjoying it, head over to your favorite podcast app, Spotify, Stitcher, Podbean, or iTunes, and give We Are Podcast Network a like. And if you get a chance, head over to our social media. All links can be found in the description. You can find us at Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at /We Are Podcast. And with that, back to the podcast.
Because I had been having that issue. And I didn't know, like, the only way I could stop it was like to stop talking and like to try to stretch it and just like just change topics and just get out of it. And, that was the only way that I had known how to stop it. And because I didn't think it was a part, I just thought it was like a nerve ending. And so the fact that I could just stop it, if it would stop, I was like, okay, maybe we really do. This is not okay. Like, all right.
Real quick, I do want to note, and we'll just note this. They don't know what causes DID, but it seems to stem from is that incorrect? I was going to say it tends to stem from childhood trauma. Is that correct?
There's two ways. Yeah. Well, essentially, there's two ways. So everyone is born with an unintegrated personality state, similar to like the movie In and Out, with the like disgust and joy and all of that is a good kind of representation. So we're all born with that unintegrated personality state. It is through our experiences with our caregivers, our environments, and family and friends that we learn and we start to form our identities, start to form who we are. And specifically between the ages of 3 to 10 is when the natural integration process takes over. And that is, again, formed just naturally. Now, by the time we're 10, we kind of, we're there, a little sass with our attitude, just like, oh, we can't wear that. That's so uncool, right? We're getting ourselves, like we're understanding, and that is your identity, who you are. It's how you perceive the world. It's how you perceive yourself. It's how you perceive other people, how you perceive interactions, all of that. And if there is overwhelming, sustained, long trauma in those ages that is long running, that is not just a one incident, that is to the child inescapable and overwhelmingly heinous, then the brain does what it essentially has done for survival. It's kind of instinctual. It disassociates. And so, during these experiences that are overwhelming, what happens is the brain compartmentalizes. It's some people say, out of body experience. They're watching themselves, or they're just not there. They don't even know. Some a lot of fictive alters that are kind of created after characters that are like in a movie or in a play or in a show or what have you. A lot of times those are created because during those overwhelming experiences, that's what their focus was. That's where their brain was putting all of their trauma, or that's where their brain was putting all of their conscious, but essentially it gave the child the ability to develop then as normally, if you will, as naturally as possible. Because if the child knew what was happening to them, they wouldn't be able to develop mentally at all. And so these experiences, these compartmentalized experiences, the more and more they happen and the more severe, the amnesic barriers can happen. And these are experiences such as, physical abuse, sexual abuse, ongoing, very severe neglect. In certain instances, there have been known medical disorders or medical conditions, where you're undergoing lots of surgeries or you're in the hospital a lot, all of those things. And it is because those fractured experiences. Now, what happens is those experiences then are still there. They need to be held there, because if they're not held there, then they are just bleeding out, and they need to eventually or else it will continue to manifest in a dangerous way with regards to self-harm and ending their lives, because that's all that part knows is those experiences. And so with that, it's something that in life, if the child doesn't learn to cope any other way, if the child doesn't know how to care for themselves or isn't taught self-care methods with regards to nutrition, or how to adult properly, or how to handle their emotions or overwhelming situations, or any of the things like that, what happens is the brain only knows how to disassociate, how to break off. And so when overwhelming situations arise, the brain just disassociates. And so again, each system is going to be different with how their parts are formed specifically, but through overwhelming experiences, that is inescapable, that is trauma, and later in life becomes very, very problematic if not made aware. If not, I don't like the word diagnosed, because it's not a disorder. That's up for debate on whether to remove it, because the only other real cause that they found for having DID is if you have a parent with DID. And that's not because the parent is abusing the child. It's because the brain just sees, oh, that's the way we're developing. That's a normal way. That's a healthy, functional way. That's how we're going to do it.
Okay, what was the second way then?
Formed by having a parent who you learn all of your life from. So you learn how to live from a person that is a system. Your brain is just, oh yeah, we know that. We know how to do that. Now, they don't have generally the amnesic barriers, I believe, but they definitely are more aware of like the different kind of sides of themselves. And they're more, I've only spoken to a few people whose parents are DID, and how they share and explain and go over how they view themselves and everything else. It's a system. Yeah. It's a functional, happy system. They're just, because they haven't been stigmatized like that. They just know how to use the brain for good. They're actually, it's a superpower. They're more successful a lot of times because it's the ability to, have a lot of these multitasking. But can be hard at times, but it is very difficult for me to just do one thing, to sit and do one thing, because everyone else is wanting to do something else. So like it's similar to ADHD with the fidget,
Well, let's get into how you cope with it, because you have a system for the system. You have a calendar. You have written out how you're feeling in the calendar, which can change. That way you can visualize it. You also set your clock to every 30 minutes. Is that right?
Yes. We do 30 minutes because we're trying to train our system to learn what time is, because time.
Well, 30-minute blocks, I mean, a lot of people would feel like that's not a lot of time, but it seems like a lot can happen within that 30 minutes.
Oh, it is like I am like, how many times has it buzzed since this? It's
twice, maybe.
What? It's felt like 4 or 5 hours that we've been talking. But other parts, right, when they're like, not for me, like, right, they're just like, it's a little faster. Every part experiences differently, but the time distortion is my theory. I attribute it to each alter. That's their time, and they're not sharing their time, and it's, so we're not able to piece together our day. Like, we haven't learned to piece it together to have a concept of and a proper understanding of what a day looks like. I mean, previous to awareness, we did, because we had worked out, I didn't know all of the things that really happened, the things that were hidden, compartmentalized until after a diagnosis. But 2 hours is how we try to increment our day for productivity. Each part gets 2 hours to do their whatever it means that they're trying to do, either it's therapeutic or what have you. But I don't have my board. I'm creating boards for other systems to help, because it's very helpful to have morning and nighttime. I feel like it'd be better if I had it.
Well, you can see the board on the TikTok videos, and
the TikTok. And then if you go to there's going to be a store up soon with them on as well. So, but yes, my TikTok, the Day in the Life of DID, I believe it's one of the videos.
Yeah, it's like an 8 or 9 part series, and you go through all that. You show what the day is like, and the ups and downs of the day. But the big thing I took away from it was the exercise, the rollerblading. Is that kind of ground you? Is that right?
Yes, well, because that is how we essentially, that's our medication, is because that's what helps us balance our chemicals. That's what helps us to do community time. Community time is communicating with my parts, communicating, checking in with each of them. Hey guys, how you doing? Like, everyone feeling okay? We got good? Not good? No, you're not? Okay, what's going on? Yeah, no, you don't want to talk about it? Okay, that's fine. I get it. Can you go into the room or safe place? We don't want that passive influence. Trying to remain positive here. Yeah, no? Okay, good. You? Yeah, no, we're good. Okay. And it's weird. And it was made of where I didn't even think about it, because I'm just trying to communicate with me. I've always somewhat talked in the mirror-ish, but not affirmation-wise. Not like, girl, you are gorgeous. More like, oh my God, that's us. No, that's not what I look like. And that's body dysmorphia, because the parts. But yeah, I forgot what we were talking about.
We were talking about whenever you exercise, which is going to be rollerblading, but also you're a fellow hula hooper. I don't know if you see my hoop there. I love hula hooping.
Yes.
It's the best. Do you find that also helps you, or is that just pure exercise for you, or just
absolutely helps and proven?
Oh yeah, if you get in that flow state when you're doing it, and just bring the up and down and listen to some music, dubstep or whatever it may be, just feeling it. You know what I mean? It's wonderful. I wish everyone hula hooped. It's spiritual in such a way that they don't understand. They think I'm crazy because I do it. I mean, I'm like, whatever makes me happy.
You center yourself. You're getting connected, because you're able to actually put that mind to your physical. You're able to get that brought together. That's one of the things I'm doing, is I'm trying to get the hoop classes, not classes really, but just the work flows, because we have the plurally, the different life flows. But yeah, hooping is absolutely an amazing outlet that allows for us to kind of get a lot of emotional, excessive emotional feelings and whatnot, able to help us kind of get that out, so that we can really truly review it, analyze it from multiplied means, from every different angle and view and perception and that we have available to us in our head. But it absolutely gives lens to, just the chemicals. So it has the actual, exercise qualities and benefits of it. So it is manually, balancing my chemicals and making it so that the underlining kind of mood shifting and changes can not have as much impact. It's a little less dramatic because it's multiplied. We feel differently at different times. But the blading we have found is just not only super fun, but with hooping, because we started hooping and blading because we're going to invent blade hoop figure dancing.
Nice.
Pretty excited about it. And then that just goes to the multiple thing. I feel like that's just me being like, I need to do multiple things at once or way too stuff. But I encourage anyone and everyone to do it because it's releasing that toxicity and releasing that energy, that badness, giving yourself a chance to talk to yourself, which everyone should do.
Absolutely.
Listen to yourself empathetically, without judgment, be kind, be as kind to yourself as you are to everyone else, which is really hard to do.
Well, let's talk about two more things real quick. First, I want to talk about comedy. You are looking to become a stand-up comic. You've done comedy on stage. We met through a live show app, which I suggest everyone give a go. Yeah.
Yes. Oh my God, it's amazing. A live show app. It's so phenomenal. I'm so just yes.
It is bomb. So if you're not using a live show, you need to get on there. It gives you a chance to practice your stand-up. Now, have you taken it to an open mic yet, or have you been on stage?
Yes.
Where are you at within your community?
Tempe Improv. Yeah, I did an open mic at Tempe Improv. This week, I'm going down to another improv locally to hopefully be like, can I get books? Because no, I was recommended actually when I was at improv after I went up and everything. They're like, you need to go to this place because you will get bookings. Yeah, I'm like, are you sure? Because it's pretty sure that there's a process of undergoing like paying dues, right? I don't get to just be like, headliner. I've always wanted to do stand-up, like always. I've always wanted to do and I took it a step back. I didn't think I was bold enough to do stand-up. It was just like one woman show maybe, right? Because I don't think I'm funny enough to do stand-up. Like I'm really weird. Like I know that. So like I could at least like a one woman show. And I was like, well, that's kind of basically the same thing. And then people, all my life have kind of really enjoyed when I tell stories. I'm not sure why. But when my therapist was like, yeah, you really should write a script about your life and you should do a movie. And I was like, I don't know, I should, right. And then from then on, it was, that was my, way of advising people. Like, I'm going to be very, very authentic and transparent when I portray you in my movie.
The thing is, you have a story to tell with the DID. You could do a one-person show on that. That would be really, really good because it's educational.
So we're writing comedy, writing our stand-up and everything. It is, oh my gosh, therapeutic, first of all, just to write. Because we're just writing our experiences. Like we're going through and just like writing the things that we say, like it's just our experiences, how it happened and everything else, because it's comical a lot of times. And that has helped for presentation purposes and us being like, all right, guys, we're going to rehearse when we front. We're going to rehearse that switching so that we're not shearing off our finger, like in the middle of a switch doing a craft. It's amazing. Like being able to make people laugh and share and bring awareness to something that not many people are familiar with is amazing. And I've had a lot of systems approach me and tell me that I've helped them. And I'm like, what? Yeah, I can die peacefully now. Thank God. I just wanted to help one person. And it's just, it's reaffirming. And I've only been doing it a month and a half, 2 months. How much? 2 months, I believe now, when I first got on Clubhouse. My second room that I went into was a comedy workout room where you tested material. I didn't know that. I just talked for 3 minutes because they said, do you want to talk? And I was like, oh yeah, I'll talk for 3 minutes. Absolutely. And then afterwards they started critiquing me and I was like, I should have actually, yep, thank you. Yeah. I should do stand-up, huh? Damn it. Even comedians think you think I'm a comedian. No, that was okay. The decision's been made. We're doing it. First day comedian. Hi.
Well, the thing you said there too is helping other people. Let's talk about the nonprofit that you're putting together.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, for bringing that up.
Yes. What is the name of the nonprofit again?
Plurally Inc. Incorporated. It's Plurally with an I at the end, PLURALLI. It is my kind of passion project because it is exactly what essentially I need right now, post-diagnosis. The transitioning and integrating back into society is difficult. So Plurally's mission is to identify, diagnose, and support those with dissociative disorders. and to directly aid in reducing the statistics. It's alarming to me that, 70 to 72% that are diagnosed fatally commit suicide. 70 to 72. That number is startling, especially very personal for me because of the number of times that has been prevalent in our lives. And so with that, there's an acute need for a safe place where systems can learn that all of the things that they may now just have been given access to, those memories, those unlocked, compartmentalized memories from childhood, they're just now being aware of it. They were aware of some of the stuff in childhood a lot of times. I knew of some of the stuff, yeah. And, it was bad, but it wasn't that bad. Like, I got through it. I was successful. I was functional. Like, I was very successful professionally. But post-awareness, like, I'm going on, less than 6 months from leaving treatment, completing it, and, learning to communicate and those memories being shared. Like, that's the thing I'm struggling with. And because I was on FMLA in my employment, on my first day back from FMLA, regardless, that didn't work out, but I'm stuck in a situation that a lot of systems are at where they're left with nowhere to kind of learn to function with themselves, learn to be the most productive, learn to process their trauma, learn to know that they aren't their trauma. They can and will get through this. They are loved. They are valid. That's something that a lot of people don't have, that one person, and that's one of the things in my research and, speaking with systems, speaking with, family members of systems that had passed away, either because they, ended their lives because they refused to go to treatment because they didn't believe they were dead. They couldn't handle that. They just needed this one person. If they just had if this relationship would work out, you would see. And you see that decline when they're in a relationship, or they have a friend or something. That one person that finally someone sees me, and it's up, and they start climbing. They're up and then fall. When inevitably it becomes too much for that person. Inevitably, it is overwhelming because either that faux narcissism, that presentation of gaslighting that truly is just an undiagnosed system. And so the decline, and if you don't have that one person or somewhere where you're able to learn to love yourself, learn that you are not what was conditioned in childhood. And that aspect, everyone's conditioned in childhood, and that's something that a lot of people have to break and undo. The difference and the very, very singular thing that is acutely needed is the unconditional. And that is something that a lot of times it's inappropriate to place on our friends. Like, it can be overwhelming, and then you're exhausting your family, you're exhausting, your support system because they don't know exactly what's going on. They just want to help you. But also you're yelling at them and screaming at them for something that they have no idea why it is, but they want to help you still. But now they need to take space for their mental health. They need to care for themselves. They still love you, but it's multifaceted.
True plurally. You want education. You want to have a strong, safe place for people to be that are a system. And also, you said that you want to create hula hoop and rollerblading. What was it called again?
Full flow classes. The flow classes are peer-to-peer taught resources. The Flow Center is what it is. The Flow Center is what I plan to open. It's a community center, essentially. That won't have the transitional housing that is a little bit later in the 5-year plan for Plurally. But, first step is the community center and building the resources where we're bringing community back to community, where we're connecting with our neighbors again. We're connecting with those resources of knowledge that are local. We're connecting and able to help share, nuances that aren't being shared because it's generalized, but, bringing back that atmosphere of abilities to have music course, music class, for kids for after school or what have you. The Flow Center also going to have different abilities for, guest speakers outside of the core curriculum with the different pillars. There's the 3 pillars that I believe, if balanced successfully, can lead to a quality of life that is palatable at least, right? No, but it can help you ascend and attain, your best self, your most authentic and truest self. And that is, balancing your workflow, your life flow, and your creative flow. Those 3 flows need to be in sync and need to balance themselves because that's where you're able to fully express and not have everything bottled up. So each flow pillar has a different path and a different, course and reason why you would want to go into those. So that is in construction. Obviously, I'm building content, building it, I'm getting my creators, my teachers, and, the different resources that are wanting to do that locally, as well as make the online resources available as well. So that it's a platform that can be, worldwide. Yeah, so that's the Flow Center. That's kind of the hoop classes. Life Flow has classes, similar to how everyone always says, home ec should have taught me how to budget. The Flow Center will. It's going to be, your neighborhood accountant, CPA that has is retired and he's likes to spend some time, so he's going to do a class. He's going to teach you how to budget, things like that. And it's vital to help us build this resiliency within ourselves so that we can rely on ourselves. Self-resiliency is important. We need to make sure that we are able to take care of ourselves so that we can take care of others.
It sounds like to me, this isn't just for people who have DID or who are DID. Right. This is for everybody.
Right. Exactly. It's multifaceted. It is because disassociation is a spectrum. And that's what a lot of people don't realize. When you are overwhelmed in your life, when you are overwhelmed with work, with how you're going to bring an income in to pay for your bills and all of the different facets, and you find yourself mindlessly scrolling social media for hours. And why? You have things you have to do. Your brain is like, nope, you need to, we're going to disassociate. I'm going to force you to take a minute. We get into these bad habits to where we're spending our time unproductively because we don't know how else to cope with our situation. We don't know how else to get under these pile of bills, to get under the fact that, yes, I have a job. It's a good job and it will be better when my boss recognizes how hard I work. Right. And so, but it's overwhelming, and the expectations that we have, from society, from everywhere, and we're leaving ourselves just uncared for because none of us were really taught all the right way. And that is not to say that every generation wasn't doing the best they could. Every generation wasn't doing better for their children than they had when they were growing up, because that's every parent's desire. That's every, desire for is to do better for your children. But it comes to the point to where we are all hurt people hurting people. We are all just kind of coming and having the knowledge and having the ability to see the resulting effects and the resulting impacts that have on our lives in adulthood, the attachment styles and how that pertains to our work life, how that pertains to our friendships, our social circles, all of it. And so disassociation is a spectrum, and it ranges from driving home from work and, you're kind of thinking about, well, what am I going to make? I'm going to make, I think that chicken's thought or what have you. And you get home and you're like, I was like, what? All right, well, we're home. We're safe. We're getting walking on inside. That's disassociated. Absolutely disassociated. To the other side of the spectrum, I got me. I got amnesic barriers between my disassociative states. And so it's something that is a practice in staying present, which everyone can benefit from.
Absolutely. Do you have a website yet for this?
Yes, plurally.org is that's very new. We're, like I said, we just got through incorporating as a nonprofit. We are now applying and going through to get our 501c3 status. We are getting things set up to accept donations and accept support so that we can start helping people start getting this. My board is amazing. People that I've known for a long time and have seen me kind of go throughout life. And it's awesome. But plurally.org, so pluralli.org. And yeah, you can learn a little bit about us. I'll be updating it soon, and keep checking in, keep checking back, because it's updating and we're growing regularly. And I am determined to reduce this statistic because we're all here for each other. Like, we are all valid and loved, and let's bring it back. So yeah, I'm excited. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone, it's going to be linked in the description of the podcast. You can just click it, go over. Also, we're going to link all Kasie's social media there too, so you can go join those. Is there anything else you want to talk about? Anything you feel like we missed?
I would say the only thing I would love to mention is Plurally, as of right now, we're hosting and doing class rooms and Clubhouse for the life flows. We have the professional flow, life flow, and the dissociated system talk space. So if you check it out, Plurally Club on Clubhouse, you'll also be able to kind of talk to me as well there regularly. That's 4 p.m. Mountain Standard Time is the dissociated system talk. That's every day, except for Mondays where I have a sister room that we go to. But yes, check it out. Follow us on social media. Please, if you have any questions, something that you think is maybe uncomfortable to ask, or something that you're really wondering or you're confused on about DID, or you have a friend or what have you, go to ask.jadedunicorn.com or ask.plurally.org. And it's a form. You can fill out your question. anonymously if you want, or you can leave your email, and we'll go over those topics. And it's something that needs to be talked about. It's time to end stigmas for all mental health.
I think that this is a great idea to literally be able to do what you're going to do and to have conversation and answer questions, difficult questions. Because like this whole conversation has been a introduction to DID and the different things of it, but people don't know and they just don't know. And I'm sure they're afraid to ask questions. So it's a wonderful place to go and to be able to say, hey, listen, what is it like? Because you have a unique perspective that you can share with the world. And whether that be through the website, through helping others, videos, and stand-up, you have creative outlets all around. And hopefully it'll help you too in the long run. Because like you said, you're still within the midst of working through this.
100%. And yeah, Jaded Unicorn is more personal for my story. Like that's where I feel comfortable being like, here's the things about me. And, it's directly, I don't know how to separate them fully, but the nonprofit, I am determined to not mess it up because of me. Right. And so, Plurally is kind of separate, and more specifically, I'm trying to get that to be the resource center and do mission. And I'm trying to accept volunteers, whereas I can do it all. I should not do it all.
No, just be the leader and allow others to take on the role 100%.
Thank you so much. I really, truly, truly appreciate thank you. You have no idea. The opportunity to speak with you, to be on your show and, reach your audience.
Thank you so much. Everything's linked in the description. Like I said, everyone go check it out. Kasie, thank you so much for being with us today. It's been awesome. And hopefully we'll have you on in the future again, and we can discuss where your progress is at and also where the nonprofit is at. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
All right. Bye-bye.
Have a great day. Bye.
And there it is. Thank you again so much for checking out the podcast today. If you enjoyed it, head over to your favorite podcast app, Spotify, Stitcher, Podbean, and iTunes, and give We Are Podcast Network a like. And if you've enjoyed this podcast, you're going to love the other podcasts here on the We Are Podcast Network. We have We Are Air, where we talk movies, entertainment, whatever the fuck we want to talk about. That's me, that's Jake, and that's Javi. We're breaking down that pop culture, and we're having so much fun. And don't forget to check out We Are Bagu, a video game podcast where we talk Atari to Steam and everything between. That's me and Dr. Ethan Eastwood breaking down all that video game lore and having such a good time. Heroes, Gyros, a Dungeons and Distractions side quest. Me and the boys were playing some D&D. You can start that one from Season 1, Episode 1. It's a blast the whole way through. And finally, our new live video podcast, Slash Horrorcast, where we're going to have a roundtable discussion about our favorite horror movies. That'll be available on Twitch and YouTube, streaming every Monday at 8 p.m. Check the links in the description to find out what movies we'll be watching. Also, check the links in the description for our social media. You can find us at Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at /We Are Podcast Network. With that said, thank you so much for checking out the podcast today. Please remember to support local comedy in any way that you can. We'll see you next time.